Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into something I find absolutely fascinating, the ancient fitness paradox. We are going to explore this really jarring reality of why ancient humans, who literally never jogged, never hit the gym, and definitely never tracked their macros, remained in dramatically better physical condition than most of us today.
So you really gotta wonder, right? How did a species that never invented the squat rack or the running shoe end up so much fitter than our modern athletes? Well, let's look closely at what the physical evidence actually tells us about our ancestors.
And honestly, the skeletal evidence here, it is not subtle. When archaeologists examine pre-agricultural bones, their density consistently blows ours out of the water. The muscle attachment sites, those roughened areas on the bone where muscles actually anchor, are way more pronounced. This indicates larger, significantly stronger muscles. And the crazy part is, these were just ordinary, everyday humans. They weren't elite, high-status athletes with special diets. These were regular people who possessed physical capacities that would make the average modern gym-goer look totally sedentary by comparison.
Moving into Section 1, Exercise versus Physical Activity.
To really understand this paradox, we need a complete reframing of how we define movement itself. Here is the big paradigm shift. Humans evolved for continuous physical activity as a baseline condition, not a sedentary life that we temporarily interrupt for a 45-minute workout. Think about modern exercise. It's deliberate. We schedule it in our calendars. We do it specifically to get fit. And then, boom, it's over. But for the overwhelming majority of human history, the concept of working out simply did not exist. Ancient physical activity was just survival. It was continuous, varied daily movement acting as the default state of being. That brings us to Section 2, a life of constant movement. Let's look at exactly what that ancient, continuous physical activity looked like on a daily basis. To put this into perspective, we can look at the Hadza people of Tanzania as a modern analog for our ancestors, and the sheer volume of their daily movement is just staggering. Men in these communities walk roughly 15 to 19 kilometers a day while foraging, and women are covering 9 to 12 kilometers. Guys, that is essentially walking a half marathon every single day, just to get lunch. And this wasn't some special event, it was just the ordinary baseline of daily life. And get this, they weren't just strolling down a flat, paved suburban sidewalk. We're talking about a full, three-dimensional, constantly varying movement vocabulary. They navigated steep slopes, dense vegetation, and loose ground. They were constantly squatting to examine tracks, climbing trees for resources, and reaching overhead. Plus, they were basically always carrying loads, water, kids, heavy tools. This naturally recruited all those stabilizing muscles in the trunk and shoulders in ways that completely loaded the skeleton and built immense capability over a lifetime. Which leads us to Section 3, the biology of background movement. To understand why that daily half marathon matters so much, we have to look under the hood at how the human body processes different types of physical stress. See, modern exercise relies on an acute stress recovery cycle. You go to the gym, you drastically elevate your heart rate, release cortisol, and create a spike of acute physiological stress. Then, during the recovery phase, your body adapts by synthesizing muscle and remodeling bone. That is how we signal our bodies to increase capacity today. But contrast that with the continuous, moderate signals ancient humans fed their bodies all day long. Rather than intense, scheduled bursts of stress, that continuous background activity drove profound biological maintenance. This chronic low to moderate signal is actually the primary stimulus for something called mitochondrial biogenesis. That's a fancy term for the creation of new energy factories inside your muscle cells. It is the absolute foundation of metabolic health and resting cardiovascular function. And here's the kicker, you simply cannot replicate this continuous all-day cellular maintenance signal with a short, high-intensity workout. All right, Section 4, building the childhood baseline. Now, this constant movement didn't just magically start in adulthood. It was fundamentally wired into human development from day one. The bone density and neuromuscular coordination that gets established during free, spontaneous outdoor play actually locks in a person's physical baseline for life because bone is incredibly responsive to loading during growth. Ancient kids defaulted to this active state just by virtue of their environment. By contrast, our modern passive childhood, marked by historically unprecedented levels of sedentary screen time, is literally setting younger generations up for deep skeletal and metabolic deficits that are going to follow them forever. Let's move on to Section 5, brains, sleep, and squats. It turns out this background movement impacted a lot more than just muscles and bones. Ancient humans didn't just move differently, they rested differently too. All that sustained daytime activity pretty much guaranteed they would get the deeply restorative, slow-wave sleep that we constantly struggle to achieve today. This deep sleep is exactly when growth hormone is secreted for tissue repair. It forms this perfect bi-directional loop. Continuous activity promotes deep sleep, and deep sleep maximizes physical adaptation. Our modern habit of sitting all day, combined with artificial light and irregular schedules, completely shatters this evolutionary loop. And we can't ignore the massive cognitive piece of this puzzle. When you're engaging in sustained, moderate physical activity, your body releases a protein called BDNF. It is basically miracle grow for your brain, specifically promoting neuron growth in the hippocampus, which handles memory and learning. Ancient humans were continuously feeding their brains with BDNF all day long. So the cognitive decline and reduced brain volume we see in modern sedentary populations, it's partly due to literally starving the brain of its normal evolutionary maintenance signal. And then there's posture. Just look at how we sit today versus how they rested. Ancient humans naturally maintained all their joint mobility by resting in a variety of positions. Kneeling, sitting on the ground, or dropping into a deep squat with their hips below their knees. Doing this automatically prevented musculoskeletal pain. Meanwhile, our modern quote-unquote ergonomic desk chairs flex our hips at 90 degrees and fix our spines, essentially locking our bodies into dysfunction. We literally have to do dedicated 30-minute stretching routines just to undo the damage of sending emails all day. Finally, Section 6, the modern exercise solution. So where does all this leave us? Our desk jobs and our expensive gym memberships? Well, here is the hard truth. While modern structured exercise is absolutely crucial as a compensatory fix, giving us undeniable strength and cardio benefits, it is physiologically inferior to continuous background movement. Sitting for 8 hours and exercising for 1 hour is actually biologically worse for your metabolic markers than just walking throughout the entire day. The signals we're sending our bodies are different in kind, not just in quantity. It really brings home this fantastic quote. Ancient humans didn't need exercise because their lives were exercise. That right there is the whole paradigm shift. They were not fitness enthusiasts tracking their steps. They were just people living a survival-driven life that demanded continuous background activity. Their incredible physiques were simply the natural byproduct of their environment. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to take a hard look at your own daily routine. Ask yourself, are you relying on a 45-minute workout to fix a 23-hour sedentary lifestyle? Because our biology clearly proves that the gym alone is simply not enough. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.